This is a pivotal offseason for the Louisville Cardinals. Many key positions to address, none more important than the quarterback position. We'll discuss the latest developments on today's show.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome in to this late Friday/Saturday episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my sixth year covering U of L, fourth year of hosting this show. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. Of course, Locked On Louisville, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network in the world. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. A lot of stuff to discuss on today's show. Men's basketball with a frustrating loss at Stanford on Friday evening. We'll discuss what went wrong for the Cardinals in California and the questions we have moving forward. There's some key roster movement on defense, a key player announcing that he's staying, a key player announcing that he's going to the portal. So we have to discuss the impact of those two decisions. But we'll start out today's show with some portal quarterback updates. Now, the portal opened on Friday officially at midnight, and I was incorrect with the timing. I thought that there were going to be some commitments. I thought that this could be like NFL free agency, and it just wasn't like that. Now, you can't really blame me. No one really understood what was going to happen. But what we did see more so throughout the day on Friday was visits being lined up, schools being mentioned as programs to watch for insert recruit here or insert player here. And of course, we're monitoring the quarterback updates as closely as we can for the Cardinals, because you know that Jeff Brom likes to move pretty quickly when as it relates to bringing in a portal quarterback. Now, we've talked about Dylan Raiola, we talked about Josh Hoover, Colton Joseph, and other players, but the two that were mentioned in connection with Louisville on Friday were Ohio State's Lincoln Kienholz and Florida's DJ Lagway. We'll start with the former. Lincoln Kienholz spent 3 seasons at Ohio State. He backed up he was a backup for Kyle McCord in 2023, Will Howard in 2024, and Julian Sayin this season in 2025. In a tweet or an article from Pete Nakos, he mentions that an ACC school and a Big 12 school are the two early schools to monitor for Lincoln Kienholz. And those two schools, Louisville and Cincinnati. So it very well could turn out to be a Jeff Brom versus Scott Satterfield battle for the South Dakota quarterback. 6'3", 214 pounds, ranked pretty highly coming out of his respective high school class in 2023, but just hasn't seen much time at OSU. Now, some fans have reached out to me and said, Dalton, what am I missing here? Why is Louisville going after a guy who really hasn't done much? Like in his career at Ohio State, he completed 10 of 22 passes in 2023 for 111 yards. In 2025, this season, 11 of 14, 139 yards and a touchdown. He had 11 carries for 66 yards and 2 touchdowns this season as well. And I'll say this, regardless of who Louisville brings in at quarterback, I'm going to automatically give them the benefit of the doubt. I know that the Miller Moss experience wasn't a great one for Louisville fans. The Jack Plummer one was sort of up and down. The Tyler Shuck era at Louisville in 2024 was a great partnership between the two parties. But at the end of the day, I'm going to trust Jeff Brom, even though, the quarterback development hasn't been great through the first 3 years for internal options. Quarterback additions in the portal have kind of been hit or miss. Jeff Brom still knows more than I do. So regardless of who he brings in, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. But it's true that there is a good amount of risk involved with this potential addition. We talked about the risks for every quarterback that Louisville could be going after. For Raiola, it is taking too many sacks. and decision-making. For Lagway, it's processing injuries. For Hoover, it's decision-making and lack of prototypical NFL quarterback size. For Kienholz, it's a little bit different. You really don't have much to go off of in terms of productivity, so the risk is higher. Now, if you talk to Ohio State fans, it seems like they either are in one of two camps. The first camp is that of, well, Kienholz pushed Julian Sayin all offseason in the quarterback battle, and they kind of went back and forth. And yeah, Sayin beat him out, but Kienholz was right there. So being a backup quarterback at Ohio State might not necessarily be the worst thing. And then there's the other group that says, well, Ryan Day might have said that this was a close battle to keep Julian Sayin humble, but the truth of the matter is that this wasn't really that close of a competition. Sayin was the clear-cut QB1, and it was reported that Kienholz was closer than maybe he actually was. Now, I don't care what the actual truth is. Well, I guess maybe I do, because it would matter a little bit. But the productivity just isn't there. So there is a greater risk involved with bringing in a guy like Kienholz than for, say, Raiola, Lagway, Hoover. Now might be a little cheaper because the lack of production, but I don't think he's going to be a guy that you get for pennies on the dollar. Like, I still believe that somebody's going to be willing to pay Lincoln Kienholz. Now, the rumors out there are suggesting that he wants to go somewhere where he could be the starter. So if you're one of those people that think, well, yeah, Louisville's going to bring in multiple quarterbacks, he could be a depth piece. I don't know that he comes here with the mindset that he's going to compete for a job. He's going to come to a program with the assumption that he is the QB1 in 2026. Some people have said to me, well, Joe Burrow was an Ohio State quarterback who couldn't really find the playing time, and then he transferred to LSU and had one of the best single-season performances for a quarterback in college football history. Yeah, sure, but Joe Burrow was an outlier. Then there's some that says, well, just see what happened on Thursday night. Trinidad Chambliss, a D2 quarterback going to Ole Miss, won another playoff game. Yeah, sure, I agree. Trinidad Chambliss is still an outlier. So, like, for every Trinidad Chambliss, for every Joe Burrow, there are an exponential amount of backup quarterbacks that just don't pan out. Now, I guess if you're going to be a backup quarterback anywhere, and it makes sense that a change of scenery could help you out, Ohio State's probably one of those places because of the amount of talent that they have in that room. But are you really willing to risk it if you're Jeff Brom here for 2026? Now, I guess if all else fails, maybe Briggs Cherry can be your starter if Kienholz doesn't live up to the expectations, or maybe another quarterback that you bring in. So the risk is pretty high here. I don't know in terms of a reward. I mean, Ohio State fans seem to swear that this guy is pretty talented. And at the end of the day, I'm going to trust Jeff Brom. So it's kind of one of those things where I'd had to be like in wait and see approach before I talk about expectations for 2026. Another quarterback that Louisville was linked to on Friday, one that we've already talked about, that is DJ Lagway. In a tweet from Matt Zenitz, he says, among the early teams expected to be in the mix with Florida quarterback DJ Lagway, per sources, Baylor, Louisville, Missouri, and Virginia. Lagway ranks as the third best quarterback and 10th best player overall, or 10th best overall player in the transfer portal. I'm starting to talk myself into believing in the DJ Lagway edition, if that were to come to fruition, just because of the talent there. Like, if you're asking me, would you rather have Lagway or Kienholz? I'm going Lagway, and I'm not sure that it's a huge debate back and forth. Now, what worries me here is that Lagway is from the state of Texas, and Baylor needs a quarterback. That's a system that has been able to unlock quarterbacks. So I'm a little bit worried about Baylor in this recruitment, but if Louisville's willing to spend a good amount of money, which that's what it's going to take to land a guy like Lagway, I'd be fine with it. So Lagway, we've heard about over the past couple of weeks. There was that initial report by Pete Nakos midway through December. We're hearing about it again. Haven't really heard anything about Josh Hoover. Seems like all signs are pointing to him going to Indiana. Haven't really heard anything about about Dylan Raiola either. It seems like Iowa is a team. Yes, Iowa is a team that's trending for Raiola at the moment. So it's still early. It's the late hours of January 2nd, early hours of January 3rd, depending on when you listen to this. But Lincoln Kienholz from Ohio State, DJ Lagway of Florida, the two early quarterbacks that the Cardinals have been linked with. So I want to talk about some roster movement internally for the Cardinals, because that's another aspect of the portal. Is Louisville's doing everything they can to make sure that their stars stay Louisville Cardinals. Well, they got some good news Friday morning. They also got some pretty unfortunate news on Friday afternoon. Both are going to make huge impacts for the Cardinals defense next season. We'll discuss more when we come back. You're tuned into Locked On Louisville, covering your team every day. Let's talk about something most men don't bring up, but absolutely should. Stress from work, money, life. It doesn't just switch off at night. When it shows up at the worst possible time, Rougiat Ready is designed to help you take back control. Rougiat Ready is a next-generation prescription treatment created to support both the brain and the body, so you can feel present, confident, and ready when the moment matters. The science behind Rougiat Ready stands out tremendously. 3 clinically proven ingredients in one formula designed for both mental and physical readiness. It's easy to understand why over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Most men are ready in about 15 minutes on average, so you can stay present, confident, and in control when the moment is right. If you've been thinking about taking the next step, now's the time. Head to Rougiat.com/LockedOnCollege. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rougiat Ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready. Coordination, thank you so much for making Locked On Louisville your first listen of the day. And thank you so much for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network on the planet. If you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer Club. You'll get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Louisville, which is compatible with whatever podcast service you utilize. And you'll get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. Go to lockedonlouisville.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. We'll continue the portal talk on the defensive side of the ball, but with internal players. That is a huge aspect of the Cardinals' efforts. Yes, they're looking to fill spots via the portal, but they're also trying to make sure they don't have to replace more stars with those portal spots. 2 players in particular. One announced that he was staying, one announced that he was going. Which one do we want to talk about first? We'll talk about the good news first. Clev Lubin, in a tweet on Friday morning, tweeted out that he is returning in 2026. Seemed like it was on the fence. I was optimistic, but you just never know, especially with how good of a season he had in the ACC last year, transferring from Coastal Carolina. Teams could throw a boatload of money at somebody and get them in the portal with a Godfather offer. Now, Clev Lubin in 2025 had a really good season. He had 59 total tackles, which is 16 more than he had in the Sun Belt the year prior. He had 8.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and 3 pass deflections. He was a true game changer for Ron English's defense in 2025. And he was just the guy with like that high motor that you just can't teach. Relentless motor, the passion that he played with. He was unapologetically U of L all season long. 6'3", 250 pounds. From like an on the field standpoint, you know what he brings to the table. He's one of the best pass rushers in the ACC, one of the best game changers on defense in the conference as well. Another aspect of that is, well, Wesley Bailey graduated. He was the other starting edge rusher. AJ Green entered the portal. Now, from what I've heard, it seems like the Cardinals are optimistic that he could take his name out of the portal and come back. But replacing one edge rusher is tough enough. Replacing your other starting edge rusher is really challenging. And not to mention, let's say if AJ Green doesn't come back, that's your top 3 pass rushers on defense, along with your 2 starting interior defensive linemen, Rene Conga and Jordan Girard. So you see why this is of the utmost importance. On top of that, on the field play, sure, but Clev Lubin is the leader of the Cardinals defense. You have TJ Quinn, you've got Antonio Watts. Clev Lubin, I think, was the Cardinals leader in 2025. Like, he was that vocal leader. He was that, everybody follow me type guy. And when you're able to bring not only the production, but the personality and the leader back in 2026, it's going to be huge for a defense that is A, going to be replacing some key pieces, and B, with a new defensive coordinator. Now, one of the leaders in 2025, Antonio Watts, has entered the portal. He announced on Friday afternoon. That's brutal. As you all know, this offseason, before this season, last offseason, I guess, I was very vocally supportive of Antonio Watts. I thought that this was a breakout season waiting to happen. Now, he took a step back in terms of total tackles. He had 51 in 24. He had 42 in 2025. Now, he did miss some time with injury at the end of the season. He had 3 pass deflections. He had 2 forced fumbles this year, 3 interceptions, and 2 sacks. 6'2", 225 pounds, playing at that star position. He was Louisville's Swiss Army knife. He did it all, and he did that at a very high level. Now, one thing that I wonder here with Antonio Watts, because it seemed like we were feeling good on that front, and then Ron English goes. And now you're all of a sudden like, So there's 2 parts to this. Number one, with a new defensive coordinator, you got to wonder, where does the star position fit in? Louisville plays that 4-2-5 base defensive package, but what happens if they go to a 3-4 base? And Antonio Watts' position looks a little different. That's something that I was thinking on Friday afternoon until I saw a tweet from Antonio Watts' father. Antonio Watts' dad, who is at Boss Watts 1207, tweeted this out later on Friday evening. My son gave his all to this program, played through injuries because he loved the school, but I guess they don't value him the same way, ... in all capital letters, go be great, son, ! I look at that one of 2 ways. Maybe that is supporting the idea that his position looks a little different. Say, well, you don't value my skill set the way that you should because of what I've done? Cool. Or maybe it is a disagreement on the NIL front. And if that's the case, if that is really the case, I would really, really hope that the Cardinals could try to work something out, because you just don't replace those types of players on defense that easily. Antonio Watts is an NFL defensive player. I was going to say defensive back, but he's like a linebacker, defensive back hybrid, probably a linebacker in the NFL, I would imagine. But I guess it really just depends on the system that he goes to. But again, this is a tough loss. For the most part, you've been able to keep your defensive players from entering the portal. Clev Lubin returns. You hear good things about AJ Green. You hear good things about Micah Carter. And then now Antonio Watts is going to the portal. And that's the one, the one of the 3 players you just didn't want to lose. Well, technically 4. You didn't want to lose Clev Lubin the most, Antonio Watts, Stanquan Clark, and I would say Tayon Holloway as well at cornerback. So the impact of this, well, you bring back one of the best pass rushers in the ACC, but you lose a dynamic playmaker at that star position. And I can't really talk about how you can replace him until I know who the defensive coordinator is. There are rumors out there that Mark Ivey could be getting promoted to co-DC. And if that's the case, be prepared to see a lot of blitzing, by the way, which I love. But Mark Ivey, great dude, great coach as well. Been with the program since the Satterfield days. It really just depends on what the scheme is, if you will, for the Cardinals defense. And until we know who the DC is, until we know what that scheme is, what the system is, talking about players' roles gets a little challenging because, hey, things can look a lot different. So, great news and not so great news. I hope very desperately that Louisville can do what they can to get him to take his name out of the portal, but unfortunately, I'm just kind of not all that optimistic at the moment. Yes, you see players enter the portal and take their names out, which is very important to understand, but it feels like that just happens every now and again. It's not something that happens normally. But we will have a bonus episode probably sometime on Saturday about who is visiting from the portal this weekend. But I did want to get some basketball talk in. The Louisville Cardinals lose what turned out to be the most frustrating game that I've watched in a very long time. I know. We'll break it down. Don't go anywhere. You're tuned into Locked On Louisville, covering your team every day. Fridays already feel different during basketball season. FanDuel is making them even better every Friday night, including tonight before the games tip off. FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame. It's a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action even starts. From 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, you can go to the FanDuel app and see all of the new boosts, bonuses, and surprises. Before the Louisville basketball game tipped off on Friday night, I was surfing through FanDuel looking at all of the great deals and made a little bit of money on Friday night thanks to FanDuel. The timing's perfect, right before the games, right before the weekend starts. It adds extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour. Every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern, a little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. I mentioned it right before the break, and I'll say it again. This was perhaps the most frustrating Louisville basketball loss in quite some time. And yes, I think it was even more frustrating than the Georgia Tech loss last year. Perhaps that's just father time, recency bias. I don't care. This was a game where if Louisville plays even remotely close to their strengths, they win this game by double digits, but that's not what happened. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Credit to Stanford. They had two guys that were electric. Ibuka Okori, 28 points. He continues to prove he's one of the best freshmen in the country. Chisholm Akpara had 17 points, 8 rebounds. He was really good. And those two guys, you had Ryan Agarwal, I think is how you say it. Agarwal? I think it's Agarwal. Agarwal. He had a couple big shots. Stanford started this game out pretty hot after scoring 40 points on Tuesday. They opened up the game hitting a couple of late shot clock shots. The Cardinals couldn't really shoot the ball whatsoever. They were turning the ball over way too freely. They were careless with the basketball, and Cardinals went down by 1 at halftime. And I thought, hey, all things considered, that's a win. And Louisville took the lead going into the first immediate timeout, and they went back and forth. Louisville, they kept trading buckets. There were times where the Cardinals had a 1-point lead. They couldn't capitalize on it. They couldn't push the lead out, and Stanford took the lead back with about 10 minutes, and they did not look back. There was a play in the second half where Kenai Roots hits a 3 to tie the game, and then Adrian Woolley sort of hovers away from his man in the corner, doesn't really contend with the play, and his man gets the ball and hits a wide open 3. And again, Louisville not able to overcome that. And I point out Adrian Woolley, he wasn't the only one. Like everyone struggled in this game defensively. On-ball defense was bad. Stanford shot 46% from the field, 47% from 3, and shot 31 free throws, 10 more than the Cardinals did. Louisville, 43% from the field. Here are the tough statistics. 22% from 3, 6 of 27, 12 turnovers to 11 assists. There it is. I understand not having your floor general, Michael Brown Jr., hurts. I understand not having Kaysen Pryor in the front court hurts, but it seemed like once again, and I want to chalk this up as just a bad game because those do happen. Let's be very clear. Like, bad games happen. Not everyone's going to play perfect, right? But it's the way that Louisville lost and the manner in which they did that still kind of pose those same questions. How can Louisville combat playing a physical team, because up to this point, when a team has shown the Cardinals physicality, especially when they are defending Louisville, it kind of gets Louisville off of their game playing offensively. That popped up on Friday night. Number 2, when the three-point shots aren't falling, what's their go-to offense? You saw a glimpse of that in the first half, early second half, going to Javon Hadley, going to Sinan Defru in the front court. That helped out. But it didn't happen as much as it should. I desperately want to chalk this up to just a bad game. Ryan Conwell, 6 of 21, 18 points. He had 4 turnovers as well. Adrian Woolley only played 16 minutes because he was in foul trouble basically all game. Don't think the whistle was great, but I'm not even going to really discuss it much because Louisville had way too many opportunities to get back in that game and to win the game. They just couldn't get the job done. This goes down as a quad 2 loss, and just something that you kind of got to go back to the drawing board and figure some things out. Like I said, you got to be able to combat the physicality. You have to be able to adjust when the three-point shots aren't falling. Six made threes, and Louisville, again, I understand if you're open, shoot them, but they just weren't really getting much going on the offensive end. They usually aren't that careless with the basketball. They usually move the ball more, but they didn't on Friday night. Defensively, tough to watch. You knew that Okori was going to get the basketball, and Louisville seemingly had no answer for him. He was 50% from the field, 40% from 3, and 80% from the free throw line. They gave up too many, I won't say second chance opportunities because Louisville out-rebounded the Cardinal in this game. But just the turnovers, like rebounds that went off of their hands, like Stanford had 14 offensive rebounds, Louisville had 18. Careless passes that gave Stanford the ball back. It was a tough watch. It's very frustrating. What it does moving forward is it creates more urgency for the game against Duke on Tuesday. Because I think now you're kind of sitting here with Louisville, and it's like, okay, the Cardinals are 11-3. They're 1-1 in the ACC. There's a lot of season to go, but there are some questions surrounding this team. When is Michael Brown Jr. coming back? When is Cason Pryor coming back? I'm not sure we're going to know that until they both come back. Cason Pryor wasn't on the injury report, but he didn't play against Stanford. Something to monitor. And then, like we said, how do you combat with the physicality that Duke is going to play with, by the way? And how do you attack when your three-point shots aren't falling? Those are the things that we're watching for on Tuesday. And Tuesday is a very important game against Duke because it gives you the opportunity to take this bad taste out of your mouth, gives the opportunity to avoid a potential losing streak, and it allows you to get that resume-boosting victory and just bring the vibes back up. Yeah, you lost against Stanford. We're going to turn the page. We're going to learn from it. We're going to go out there on Tuesday and play a top 10 team. A lot on the line against Duke, in my opinion, but we'll preview that game more so coming up earlier next week. That's going to wrap up this late episode of the show. Everyone have a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here coming up soon.